Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Leaders Launch. Today we have a pleasure to host Mr. Amar
Yeah.
from Rupeek. Uh, Mr. Amar is VP of Engineering in Rupeek, having a strong experience of 15 plus years. He has almost worked for a decade for Rupeek, and he has built a complete tech stack of Rupeek from ground up. Uh, if I talk about Rupeek, these are some of the numbers that they achieved in last 10 years. They have disbursed almost 25,000 crore amount in loans, uh, 500 crore plus interest saved, to 2 lakhs household impacted, and on top of that, most importantly, 45,000 gold monetized. Now I'll hand it over to Mr. Amar to give more details about himself
Sure.
on Rupeek as well.
Sure. Thanks, Sandeep, for having me here, and thank you for the hospitality and hosting me here, and also the kind words about Rupeek and myself. So I would like to elaborate just a little bit on the points that he was talking about. So our mission is to enable credit, make it cheaper, more accessible for every Indian out there, and anyone who understands how the industry works and the scale of the problem to be solved would appreciate how big of a problem statement that is.
Definitely, yes.
So everyone wants credit. I mean, if you go around asking people in this room, hey, would you like to have a loan? And for how much? Only the quantum is going to differ, and for what purpose is going to differ. Most people are going to say yes, most likely to that answer. It's just the modality is going to be different in the sense that do they want to build a home? Do they want some form of consumption smoothing? Do they want to build or buy lifestyle products? Do they want a car? But everyone would want some form of credit, and everyone would have their own means in terms of how they want it. And depending on all of these factors, there are going to be different answers. And we at Rupeek have decided that secured lending is where we want to play.
Yes.
And it's a huge market. It's also a very challenging market to solve. And if you look at the traditional space of why people have been holding gold, that's a very interesting question because in India we have always had this habit both culturally as well as it's also forced upon us that we save in gold, right? And we weather the storm by saving up on gold. And at Rupeek, we have made this product with less stigma. We have tried to digitize every part of the process. We have tried to have distribution with multiple trusted banks, and that trust is what we want to build on top of. And the technology that we build and everything that we have done in terms of problem solving using technology is a means to that end.
Right.
And as you said, the numbers are quite interesting, and we want to compound on those numbers. While we can say that, hey, we have done this much, I think that we are still a very young company, and our journey is still ahead of us, and we have a lot more to do in terms of what kind of products that we want to offer, and how we go about offering them, and at what price point, and in terms of distribution. There are so many other problems to solve. So we continue to stay grounded, and we would like to continue to innovate for our customers.
Very interesting domain, and in fact, I always feels that this is a very interesting problem that you are solving, because see, secured lending, and especially if it is backed up by gold, and especially in context of India, this becomes a very nice problem to have and solve. So
yes, so we are continuing to innovate both on distribution in terms of how we go about it, our customer satisfaction. It's a never-ending journey to make the product and the journey better. So we are just working really hard to make it better for our customers.
Great. Best of luck for that, Amar. So see, Opstree being a DevSecOps company, and cloud is also a very important aspect around it. So probably the first section of this podcast, I would like to start from that angle.
Sure.
When we talk about cloud, there are two very important aspects. One is cost. Another one is governance. So my next questions would be around that. And we have seen your journey from last 3 years, where we were also involved into that. So I have some context, but I would like to hear from you that what is your perspective on that, right? So my first question is that how you go about setting up cloud cost governance. because this
Okay.
becomes very, very critical. And
Sure.
I've seen that a lot of organization doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And it comes as an afterthought.
Yeah.
But from very beginning, I've seen that Rupeek always has very, very clear vision that, okay, you want to control
Yes.
cost, have a proper governance. So I would like to hear your thoughts on it so that people will also get to know that, okay,
Okay.
that's how you should do it.
Sure. So talking about cloud cost and how to set it up, it's a very interesting and vast topic. Obviously, you have to start in the context of which industry you are operating in and what kind of outcomes you want from your cloud, right? So starting with that is a very good starting point.
Right.
You have to benchmark what your industry peers are doing. You can't, let's say, operate in a very traditionally grounded industry, but spend a large proportion of your budget, IT budget, or
Right.
whatever your infrastructure budget is on the cloud, right? So you have to start with benchmarking where does it fit into my business and where does it fit into my overall P&L, right? So maybe a good starting point is sitting across the table with your finance people or whoever is running your P&L and deciding as to what percentage, either as a percentage or as an industry benchmark or some other form of standardizing that spend.
Obviously.
Essentially, right? So baselining that and saying that this is the large bucket or band in which we want our cloud cost to sit, that's probably a very good first step where you agree that this is the baseline. And that could have a lot of context and nuance. Are you still growing? Are you investing in order to do something new? Are you trying to burn down some big rocks in terms of capabilities? Are you currently like deploying often and hence you're spinning up a lot of QA clusters? So a lot of those nuances need to be hashed out. And the first thing to do is just baseline that, this is how we want to run our cost. And that cost or that budget has to turn into a plan, and someone then needs to go execute and ensure that that plan is being followed.
Yes.
Of course, our pricing journey is a very interesting one, and a large, I would also say a very big topic. And I would like to probably talk about a playbook of sorts, which anyone in any industry can probably use in order to set up a good cost governance for their cloud account. So as I said, the first step is probably deciding for that particular industry where they are in, what should be their baseline or benchmark.
Right.
So let's say you are in social media and you're doing something around short video clips. Then of course your bill is going to be a reflection of that, right? You're going to have large amounts of storage. You will have to analyze those videos and then make some sense out of what is happening there, and then build some AI models, tag them, so on and so forth, and do surfacing, discovery, so on and so forth. So their cloud cost and benchmarks is going to be very different from, say, FinTech, where we are saying that our transaction volume is low, but the ticket size is high. Right? So that is a very different use case that we are dealing with. So from a first principle, somebody has to think about how the cost has to fit into the business model that you are operating in. Versus say, let's say a fintech is doing UPI transactions, then you're dealing with a very different pricing strategy where you have large amount of transactions flowing through your system, and the per transaction cost or whatever associated is, you will have to factor in these type of things when baselining and saying that this is the kind of band that we want to operate in. Now, once this is done, as I was saying, you need to prepare a plan as to, you can go about it in different buckets, or the first thing to do is decide how you want to split and look at your existing cost. Say production versus QA versus data analysis versus your data warehouse stack. These could be one way to look at it. Another way could be to look at it could be in terms of use cases, like how much of it is going to compute versus storage versus network cost versus, say, all the other tooling, depending on the cloud that you're on. Let's say AWS has its own set of tooling that you're going to end up consuming. So looking at both and then deciding where you want to allocate, and you will get a sense of where your cost should lie. This is a very good second step to follow, and from these a lot of talking points will definitely arise, right? For example, when when we went about doing it, we said that, hey, our QA costs are unreasonably high, right? So one of the reasons was that we spun up so many QA clusters and they stayed up all throughout the day.
Right.
So the first step was just saying that, you know what, maybe this is something that we should look at and spin them down during the night when nobody's deploying anything to QA, so on and so forth, right? So if you look at these two as broad buckets, which is, to recap, production versus QA versus everything else, or in terms of use cases like analytics and warehousing and when the queries run, it'll give some outcomes. And apart from this, the other side of the playbook is rather pretty simple. For us, if I have to detail down what worked for us, I would start with the biggest savings came from just moving all the legacy applications to something which is containerized, Dockerized, scales up and
modernize,
down. Yes,
right? And
modernizing is going to be
by cost saving, right?
Exactly.
Factor of cost saving.
Exactly. So modernizing where your workloads run and how they're running is a very good starting point in this journey, and that is where our biggest savings came from. And I suppose that's going to be a good enough answer for everybody, right? Just take your legacy workloads, ensure they run in a modern fashion where they scale up and down in Docker and Kubernetes, and those workloads are containerized, and that's going to give your biggest savings in terms of say percentage cost saved for each workload. That's a very good first step to have, and you guys have been pretty helpful in that journey. So that is the first big savings bucket. The second bucket is, at least for us, we had a lot of SaaS embedded in our ecosystem. And what we did is we migrated away from those paid tools to something that we run in-house. And that is our second biggest saving. Surprising, but that is our second biggest savings bucket. And here, when I say move away from SaaS, you could look at SaaS in every fashion. Like say, you will have SaaS embedded in observability, you will have SaaS embedded in security, you will have it in say analytics and visualization. Look at all the SaaS costs apart from the compute and storage that you are having, right? And wherever possible, depending on your team skills, can you run those workloads successfully? There are many factors, but we had the confidence. And here, if I were to put a interesting tidbit or analogy, it was also forced upon us because we did that baseline, right? So there's this quote, rather interesting quote, which says, people, men and countries don't change unless they have to. And it's very true for teams and companies also. So when you have that target set for you, like this is the target for, let's say, your observability, it has to be a certain percentage of your overall cloud cost. It cannot be, say, I'm going to spend 30% of my spend on say observability and debugging and logging costs. So it has to come from somewhere, and it's always good to start out with that target.
Right. In fact, I have seen this as a golden rule that, okay, let's say you are using X number of tech stacks, right?
Yeah.
You obviously, when you are not expert, you should start with managed services.
Yes.
But this should be your goal that, okay, as soon as you understand that tech stack, you bring in-house, manage by yourself, because the cost difference is huge.
Of course.
Obviously, that people skill is an aspect, but then if you can solve it, then you will, in future terms, you will solve.
Exactly. So, if I have to just elaborate on that bit for us, I think we made the decision late, but better late than never, right? So you will have to wait for a certain period before you decide that we have a mature ecosystem and we now know what our patterns are and what our expectations are out of our observability stack, and we migrated to something which looks like Grafana, Prometheus, our own custom dashboards, open telemetry, so that we can trace what is happening across the stack. I think open telemetry is great. Once you have the
we are also betting very heavily on the open telemetry stack only. So for example, for a lot of our customer, the similar stack that you talked about, Grafana, Loki, Tempo, open telemetry, this is our preferred tool of choice, which we implement for our customers. And we have seen a lot of huge gains in terms of let's say efficiency. Obviously, cost is another factor because it is completely in-house self-managed. So yes, it's a good choice.
I think it's like once you discover how it works and how it can change, how the team kind of goes about debugging and solving problems, it's like magic. And for us, it has been transformational in the way that how people think about transactions. So our flow is something like it originates from, say, a loan origination service. There is a digital funnel. There is a loan origination service. Then you have fulfillment going on, and then there are various integrations which come into play. And then finally, it all ends with a loan getting booked. And after that, the post-disbursement journey starts. And you need these trace IDs, or you need to attribute every single bug across all of these services. And without them, you're just going to go mad figuring out how to debug.
Because you want that complete trace, a complete journey.
Exactly. And a lot of that attribution can go missing when you don't have the trace IDs because you don't have, at least not everywhere in the stack. So it's pretty useful and pretty powerful. So yes, moving from a paid tool to something which you manage in-house is the second largest saving that you can do for your team.
Right.
And then comes a longer set of things that you can possibly do. But once again, speaking in broad brushstrokes, another thing that I would like to say is once you baseline and do these, then you have your SaaS. The third bucket would be just to look at how you are going about utilization. All your workloads are not going to scale the same. They're not going to ramp down the same. So it makes a lot of sense to go relook at utilization across the stack. What are the idle resources? Are there things which can be shut down? You would be surprised how much savings simply comes down from shutting down things.
Right. In fact, I have one question there. So, Amar, what I have seen is that usually what happens that in all these cost saving aspects, the angle comes that it is need basis. So let's say when some CFO comes into the picture, say that okay, why you are spending money, then company focuses on, and then they lose that focus. And then as you're talking about that resource utilization will go, or there are unused resources. Then after 6 months, so what is your take on that? Should it be a continuum effort that should continue? Somebody should be looking at cost every day, every week, every month, or it is. What I have seen is that for most organizations, what I have seen that it is on need basis. After 6 months, somebody wakes up, do the cost saving, and then forgets it for 6 months. This is what I have seen.
Sure. So it's a discovery and a journey by itself, right? So I think it needs to be a mandate where you do this on a continuous basis. It should definitely be a part of review meetings, and cost should definitely be a first-class citizen, where you don't necessarily have to make it too much of a cultural impact thing where people are afraid, hey, should I spin up a new server? No, you shouldn't go to that point. But I think you definitely should do these reviews where you on a continuous basis monitor how things are.
Right.
And once you set that up, you can set up bots. So for example, we have this bot and we track cost on a daily basis. So every day we get this alert which says, these are all your costs by say compute versus databases versus network yesterday, and this is your trend today. And that clearly tells you if there is a spike or if there is a percentage spike. And all of that kind of gives visibility while enforcing or giving people security that, hey, I'm free to do it. I just need to clean it up afterwards. Right. So it kind of is a balancing act, if I may say so.
And it's a small reminder that okay, something needs to be looked into because there is some slight changes happened, right?
Exactly.
Or nothing needs to be looked into.
Exactly.
At least it will bring again this point back into the system.
Yes. So we mostly have a monthly review kind of thing where we look at, say, this is the big line item. If there are any big deviations, then we just double click where it is coming from. And to kind of close that question and kind of wrap this up as a theme, what I would say is, people should go deep on where their costs are going. So one is you can look at it in very high level line items like we spoke about. The other way to do it is just download AWS's detailed cost usage report. So when I was given the mandate that you know what, this is what your cost should be, it seemed almost impossible to meet those targets, right? And I started off by looking at cost usage reports, and it has detailed breakdowns where every line item is going. For example, then nuances come in. One particular nuance, if I have to speak about, is just say you can look at S3, you can look at your SQS. There are so many different settings which are involved, which can blow up your cost upward as well as downwards. And looking at that closely, where you follow the cost usage reports, generally helps. To summarize, I would say first thing when it comes to governance is baselining. Second is, as we said, looking at how you can containerize and move out all the legacy applications. Third is look at SaaS as a bucket. Fourth is all the utilization and other parameters. And fifth is looking at all these finer nuances of every tool and figuring out where your costs are going. And wherever you have savings on the table, take them. And you will be surprised how far you can go.
Obviously.
And we were genuinely surprised when we hit those targets, right?
Great.
So we are talking about few tens of thousands of dollars here. So it materially all goes to the, fundamentally changes how your P&L looks like.
Maybe definitely. In fact, I wanted to ask that, okay, how DevOps team should approach cost control. You have already summarized it. That's really good. One more question that usually I ask people, especially when we talk about FinOps, right?
Okay.
Of late, people have started talking about that, okay, one aspect is that, as you said, that you should have categories. So, for example, resources is a category, business unit is a category where you talk about it. Now, people have started saying that, okay, you should do a very granular cross control as well. So, unit economics. So, for example, we were working with an eyewear company, right? They used to put this data that, okay, what is the infrastructure cost in terms of selling one spec? So, what's your thought about it, and or what's your vision around it?
Sure, it's a very interesting and also a tough way to give a generalized answer, but I'll try my best. So, essentially, what you're asking is, can you attribute your costs at a per transaction level, right?
Yes.
And it has to be done in the context of the industry. That's the first thing that I would like to emphasize. You spoke about IVR, and of course, in that industry, maybe a typical transaction looks like, I have initiated the call, then the customer is going to do a series of steps where he's following XYZ step. Nowadays, there's AI, so maybe there's a voice bot guiding them through the journey, and then they eventually get to a place where they want to, and either they speak to a human or they got what they wanted, and then there are some APIs getting triggered and they hang up, right? This is going to be the typical flow of an IVR transaction. And if you have to attribute it, there are going to be nuances to it, right? So how much of the workload can't be scaled down, right? You will have a base workload which you have to run no matter what. And if you're doing something in AI, the model needs to be kept active, and it is going to eat resources, regardless of what that transaction is going to be. So the answer is probably going to be, what is your baseline which you can't lower beyond that point, and what is the minimum transactions that you need in order for this stack to be kept alive.
Right, so you're saying that one aspect would be a capex, that is, let's say, fixed investment.
Exactly.
And then there is operational, that you can divide per unit.
Yes. And then you can additively attribute every incremental transaction to that, and it could work for that industry. And you have to do something for every industry. And it could be a different answer for, say, e-commerce, or it could be a different answer for
a logistics company.
Yeah, logistics company or a
package
gaming
delivery is the unit economics for them. That, okay, how much money is being spent. Great. Thanks, Amar, for sharing your insights from the cost governance aspect. Now, my next topic would be an area which I like most.
Okay, sure.
Is DevSecOps, right?
Okay.
So. But I think it's for a general audience as well. So I would like to start from, let's say, for an outsider, to an outsider. How will you explain compliance in specifically lending platform? What are the nitty-gritties around it? What are the challenges? Because this is more like a domain-specific aspect, right? Which a lot of people are not aware about, or maybe very interested in understanding that.
Yeah, sure. So Essentially, just to repeat the question again, what you're asking is how to kind of think about compliances and security and all of that in the lending space, right?
Yes.
Okay, so of course, in lending, people place your trust in the product, right? That's where everything starts from. When we started this, conversation, we spoke about how lending is a very personal thing to people.
Obviously.
And people place their trust in you, and they give you a bunch of their data. And depending on whether it is secured or unsecured, you're dealing with people's savings and emotions here, right?
Right.
And in our domain, we are dealing with people's physical collateral, which is gold, which has so much emotional value to them. And yeah, regardless of what space people might be in lending, you are having custody of some of their very personal data. You are dealing with money, both inward and outward, and you are dealing with also highly sensitive information. So in the interest of these things, where you have been given the responsibility of securing and taking care of these different aspects, that is where everything else comes from, both the compliance and the security that you have to abide by. And of course, our regulators, they lay down these guiding principles, and they keep evolving, and all of it is at the end of the day in the interest of the customer and in the interest of custodians of that data, right? For at least we can talk about more detail maybe around DPDP and other aspects, but at a very high level, how do you store this data? Where do you store this data? How are you securing that data? How do you transmit it? Whom do you share it with? These are the different dimensions along which people are essentially asking you to be compliant by, and this is what is going to guide your security principles.
Right.
And of course, who are the parties involved? Are they banks or are they NBFCs? What is the scale of data that is involved? So all of this has to be stitched together in order to arrive at the answer. Yeah.
Thanks, Amar. Now, probably for a layman,
okay.
if you have to explain DevSecOps to a layman,
okay.
Because I am assuming a lot of freshers would also be listening to our podcast.
Okay.
Now, industry leader like you, if you explain them, it will make a lot more sense.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to simplify this as much as possible for as broad an audience as possible. So assuming that a fresher is the one who's, let's say, writing a piece of code, right? Everyone understands that, let's say you write a hello world type of code, and then you are going to use, let's say, a common, this thing would be some kind of managed infrastructure, and you're just deploying to it. That is how hobby projects get built. But in the enterprise, there are so many different layers to it, right? First, you write some piece of code. It is going to interact with, say, databases. It will have, let's say, queues. It will have external interfaces. That's one layer. Then you kind of have this as one repository, and you're going to containerize it, right? And then that container is going to go to a Kubernetes cluster,
right?
And it is going to have its own set of networking whitelists and say what gets allowed and what goes out, so on and so forth. And finally, all of this is going to be in a, if I'm talking in AWS terms, it's going to go inside a VPC of sorts, and it's going to be behind a load balancer and behind a API gateway. And finally, that is what you interact with when you're opening an app, right? This is the typical, if I may say so, this is the typical journey from how code gets written to how a customer is going to interact with that piece of code.
So
when
beyond
he's opening,
code, there are n number of other things as well, right?
Exactly. So these are all the layers which are going to get involved when you open an app and say that I'm either booking a cab or it could be anything. So let's unbundle each of these layers and how security comes in, right? So we spoke about first writing a bunch of code. So are there secure code practices? What kind of libraries have you used? And there are tooling around that, right? So let's say SonarQube is one. In GitHub, GitHub is the most popular one. So you have GitHub Dependabot, which is there inside GitHub.
Right, which identifies
exactly.
And all that stuff.
So that is the first layer. And that's the first layer of defense. and we said that you're going to bundle it and put it in a container.
So, Amar, thanks for explaining that, okay, how compliance, what all aspects are there of compliance in lending platform. But now I want to go to basics, right?
Okay.
Because let's say in our audience, there are a lot of freshers as well. So probably how you will explain DevSecOps to a layman so that they will understand that complete construct and then imbibe in their life.
Okay, sure. We spoke about how different aspects of cloud. Now let's start from the basics. So let's say somebody is doing a college project. We'll talk about, say, something very simple like how somebody builds a college project versus how somebody builds an enterprise application. So let's say somebody is doing a Hello World app. They're going to write a small repository, post it in GitHub, and then probably they will use something like one-click deploy or something which is managing that whole pipeline for them, and that is how you build infrastructure. Versus, say, something which is in an enterprise, if I have to come backwards from the code to how the customer interacts with it, you start with a piece of code. You're going to have it in a repository somewhere, let's say GitHub. It is going to get built in a pipeline, either GitHub code pipeline or Jenkins, or some sort of tool is going to package all of that code and make it into something which runs on the cloud, right? So you have a build, and that build is going to a container which can scale up and down. So we are talking about the Kubernetes layer now. And after all of this, you have the networking layer, which is going to control what network interfaces that it can speak to, what traffic goes in and what traffic goes out. Apart from these, you have so many external things going on, right? You have the database, you have queues, you have other integrations. There are obviously going to be other aspects of that code and how it runs.
So beyond code, there are n number of things that
exactly.
Will be there, right?
So you might have a cache associated with it. So essentially, all these aspects come together, and finally, on top of this, you are going to have a VPC or a virtual private cloud, which is the networking analogy for saying that this is my network within which all my applications run, and you will have a load balancer, and finally an API gateway that is exposed to the internet. So all of this is necessary in an enterprise setting, and if I may say so, this is going to be a very typical enterprise setup where when somebody presses something on an app, either placing an order or ordering a cab or whatever the use case might be, it is going to come from the app through the public internet, reach the whatever the cloud setup that they have, enter the virtual private cloud, and finally run some bit of logic somewhere. Now all these aspects need to be secured. So you have the and now talking backwards, you have the code. So you talk about the libraries and you secure the code and the libraries. So this is going to look like, say, SonarQube and your GitHub Dependabot or something which scans for all your libraries. Then you have your containers and how those containers are scanned, and is the container secure enough? Is the runtime environment, let's say you're using Ubuntu, and is that particular version of Ubuntu patched and secure? Then you have your network configuration, where you will say that all my ports are closed and my perimeter is secure. And finally, you have your API gateway, which you are going to say that I will apply rate limits, I will apply security, I will apply authorization so that only certain segment of customers can talk to it. So DevSecOps is nothing but securing each of these layers in its own way. There are going to be distinct tools for each of these layers. There are going to be distinct methods to each of these layers. So yeah, maybe you, if you want to elaborate anyone, that would be great.
Well put together. So what I have seen, Amar, is that a lot of time people think when they talk about DevSecOps, they only think about code aspect, right?
Yeah.
But as you rightly put, that there are a lot of other things beyond code.
Yes.
Your infrastructure is also an aspect that needs to be secured. And as you said, when we are talking about, let's say, security, you said that cost is the first class citizen. Similarly, security should be that first class citizen. So any point that you are touching, you should always think that, okay, whether I am creating a security gap or is it sorted or not. So simply put together, this is what I believe, that whatever you are doing, you should always think about whether I'm compromising with security or not.
Yeah.
You should be very strict about it. And then obviously all those things will get sorted. Great. Next very interesting question that I have, and I usually discuss with a lot of people.
Okay.
When we talk about DevSecOps, then there are two categories in which people solve it, right?
Yep.
One is obviously via enterprise tool. There are multiple enterprise grade tools, and they are very mature by nature, right? But then there are a lot of open source tool as well. And typically what I've seen, then startups, they typically prefer open source tools, and then big enterprise, they always would like to go ahead with enterprise tool. And you being representing a startup, obviously it's more than 10 years, a decade for you guys. I would like to understand from you that is it possible to do it using open source tools, right?
Okay.
And then how realistic it is.
Okay. Once again, a very nuanced take, and the answer is going to be that it depends on once again what kind of thing that you're trying to do, and it's when it comes to security, it's always best to have some kind of expert guide you, right? And somebody who can help decide basis your cost and your own culture and how your own setup is, or how your own entire cloud setup is, how you should go about thinking about security, right? And it's going to be a layered conversation. We spoke about all these layers where code becomes one dimension, your network is another dimension, all your databases and storage is another dimension. So somebody will have to help guide and think about this holistically, where all these different layers are talked about and where your priorities are, right? So depending on which tools you choose, you will have to decide where these open source components can be plugged in. They will do a really great job in some aspects, but they will have their own weaknesses. Every tool will have its own weaknesses. No tool is thorough, right? So let's say I'll talk about our specific examples where we decided to use open source. So we use something called as Wazoo, which you guys helped set up, by the way. And it's a SIEM, which is nothing but everything that happens in terms of security incidents, everything that is happening in terms of monitoring. It is going to aggregate all of that in one place and help you decide how to act on those information. So it's essentially a incident management tool plus a alerting tool plus everything bundled into one. So you really have to decide where you want to use open source and where you want to use paid tools, and form a layered approach which takes into considerations all these aspects of security. So there is no simple answer. Finally, to kind of wrap up that conversation, I would say open source tools definitely can be useful. They can be plugged in, and they can be deployed successfully even in large companies, but you will have to have somebody who essentially whiteboards everything and says that this as a solution is complete.
Right. In fact, what I have seen is that one of the pattern that I have seen is that obviously you can start leveraging open source.
Yeah.
So the problem with open source is that from day zero itself you will not be able to use it as maturely possible as possible.
Exactly.
So you have to do multiple iterations.
Yes.
And then you take it to its best possible implementation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And once you are done with that, then obviously you can
Yes.
compare them. Otherwise,
Yeah.
on day zero you cannot compare enterprise to an open source tool.
Agreed. So it's going to be about can you set a North Star vision for what my security should look like for the industry that I operate, and essentially saying that month on month, quarter on quarter, we will take this particular aspect and do that really well. And if you take it as a continuous journey, and if you have a plan to reach that North Star, you eventually will.
Right.
So, yeah.
One last question in security aspect, Amar, is that, so see, one thing is that the code that you are developing or the infrastructure that you are managing, obviously you can take control of that, or you can ensure that security is taken care of. Now, one of the nuisance part is that, let's say when you have external integrations or multi-party external integration, that is somewhere you have a very minimal control. Now, how you go about navigating that multi-party external integrations and how you solve security there?
Okay, so let's talk about multi-party integrations and external integrations. So every company will have its own set of external interfaces, right? or multi-party integrations. At Rupeek, it's our bread and butter. Since we work with large banks who have essentially trusted us with their APIs and their interfaces and their data, it's like as I said, bread and butter is the word to use. And everything that we do eventually is going to have one of these critical interfaces. So how do you do your whitelisting in terms of network with them? What kind of authorization do you have? What kind of logging mechanisms do you have? How do you do disaster recovery? How do you cut over when there is failure? How do you bake in resiliency into the architecture so that when there is either some transactions are either slowing down or there is failures? So it's like a playbook of combining network resiliency, observability, having the right alerting in place, designing your architecture from day zero so that all of these integrations can play well with each other. Are they complete in terms of not just from the physical aspects of infrastructure and security, but also from the product aspect of adding to customer value and customer satisfaction and the overall customer experience, because it is directly going to boil down to how you have done those integrations.
Right.
So yeah.
Thanks, Amar. So thanks, Amar, for giving a detailed introduction about you and telling us more about Rupeek, right? Now I want to kickstart from the most important aspect that touches everybody, to you as well, to us as well. That is primarily from the cloud perspective, right? And specifically, let's say the foundation is very important, right? Anything that you do. So especially, let's say when we talk about cloud infrastructure, right? What do you think? And I will probably would also like to chime in because we are a company who is specifically working day in day out there, and I'll also give my 2 cents around it as well. But I would like to start from you, where you tell us that what do you think? What are the key pillars and foundation of a good cloud infrastructure?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting and good way to kick things off. And we are in the secured lending space, right? And we are in FinTech. So one of the key aspects of this is going to be how we do security and compliance. So one of the first things that everybody is going to ask you is, once you are integrated with financial institutions, what kind of security do you have? What kind of certifications do you have? And what are the guidelines that you are abiding by? And what are the compliances that you can adhere to? And every cloud will have its own set of nuances around it. For example, AWS has its well-architected framework and review and guidelines. It has its set of say compliances that you can add compliance packs where you say that we are an RBI regulated entity, and hence that's one of the tick boxes that you will have to do. So that's probably the first pillar for us, which is it secure? Is our cloud secure? And is it compliant? And you have to operate within, say, host everything within Indian borders. Is your data center in? Yeah, so we are 100% in Mumbai. So this is probably the first layer. And the second thing is it reliable, and how reliable is it? Can you assure that your customers, let's say, need 99.xxx number in terms of say SLA and resilience, right? So this is another aspect of it. And can you do this while staying performant, having cost guardrails in place, while ensuring that your developers and your DevOps team can deploy fast enough? So these are all the, I would say, very basic but necessary steps in order to have a good cloud setup where you can deploy your infra. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. You guys are the experts. So
see, I am very fascinated with the agile terminology.
Okay.
So the base construct of agile is that you should be very agile and very nimble as well, right?
Yeah.
So typically what we believe in that everything that you do in cloud should be very, very contextual in nature, right?
Yes. Yes.
You should be cost conscious, but you should not be overspending, right?
Yeah.
And then you should not be doing over engineering as well.
Yes.
But you should do right engineering.
Yes.
So for example, if I talk about a typical project journey, so and I'll probably start from a startup construct.
Yep.
Maybe enterprise construct would be very different, but I'll start from startup context. Now, if you talk about a startup, they don't need a highly scalable, highly resilient infrastructure from day zero, because they start from MVP, right?
Yes.
Now, point is that can you set up your cloud infrastructure in a very minimalistic fashion, very MVP, maybe one single VPC and all that
Yes.
stuff, right?
Yes.
Now let's say maybe in one single VM, everything is running, right? Because at that point of time, it is only a minimal viable product where you're doing a proof of concept that
Yep.
whether this idea stuck a chord or not, and whether there are takers around it. Now let's say once customer starts chiming in, right? Then probably you will say that okay, now let's say I want to scale in, then or maybe I want resiliency. So then you will say that okay, let's go with high availability setup,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you will go with high availability setup so that availability is ensured. Probably after some time you will start hitting a roadblock in terms of that okay, performance is getting impacted. Then you will say that okay, now let's create a scalable setup. I don't need scalable setup from day zero itself.
Yeah.
So you will start doing scale. You will start fixing the scalability aspect of it as well. Now, as you become popular, then the security risk
Yes.
will start
Yes.
creeping in
Yes.
because till that time you're not
Yes.
popular,
Yes.
nobody bothers about you. So which means that you will start fixing security, and then you will start putting security controls and all those things. So in my opinion, it has to be very very agile, very very contextual. That in which phase of journey you are in, and accordingly your cloud journey should evolve according to that. Otherwise, either you would be in the over engineering mode
Yes.
or under engineering mode.
Yes.
So you have to be at right engineering
Exactly,
at right time. So
exactly.
this is what I have seen, and this is what I believe in.
Okay, yeah, that's a really great answer and a nuanced take, and it's so hard to get it right.
Yes,
As you
right.
said, it's very easy to over-engineer when you have all these
A
shiny
lot of
bells and whistles
yes.
where you're tempted to say, let me use this
Yes.
for queues, and let me use this for scalability, and let me use this for, say, high availability. So absolutely, if you have someone who can actually give you a balanced answer where they say, for this aspect of your journey or in this phase of your startup, you don't need this. And that's a tough
Right.
conversation, but a very truthful conversation to have, if I may say so.
In fact, in our L&D initiative, this is one of the workshop that we do with our all the people in the
Okay,
company.
very interesting.
Where we say that okay, let's imagine a project,
Okay.
a company, and it starts from a journey,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
we came into the picture,
Okay.
and then first month we did this,
Yes.
and then they reached to the scale, then we did this thing, then we did this thing. It's a very interesting workshop that we
Okay.
do with them.
Okay.
Which becomes very very contextual,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
people can correlate it with real world. Right? Okay, that's how your journey should evolve.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how it is.
No, that's absolutely important, and doing that right also boils down to other aspects like we should definitely talk about cost governance and how to set up cloud cost later, but it brings in all these nuances of what actually matters in the current phase of journey that you are in, and are you set up the right way for what you are trying to do in terms of successful outcomes.
Right.
So yeah, thank you so much for elaborating on that.
Okay. Now I would like to focus on a very important aspect, which usually people, let's say, don't think about it
Okay.
or deprioritize it. That is the
Okay.
human side.
Okay, yeah, sure.
People focus a lot on tech side, but then human side, leadership,
Yes,
culture,
yes.
all those things people
Yeah.
tend to skip, right?
Yeah.
And then when things go out of hand,
Yeah.
then people start saying that okay, we should build culture and
Yes,
do all those things.
yes.
So I would like to hear your thoughts around it. I'll start from that. According to you, what are the elements of good, high performance culture?
Okay, sure. I mean, there is so much to talk about when it comes to this topic, and you can chime in with your own journey
Yes.
of how you have built culture. But if I have to say, one is just ownership, right? It all starts from do you own all the outcomes which are given to you, and will you do everything needed in order to get to that outcome? And ownership is absolutely important, irregardless of what kind of team it is. It could be an engineering team, it could be a sales team, it could be a finance team, but it starts with accountability and ownership, and that trickles down to everything else, right? So you start with accountability and ownership, and high performance culture absolutely starts from having a very high ownership stakes, be it success to customers or accountability to your stakeholders. your business counterparts or your whoever your counterpart might be, essentially, right? And another aspect is probably, I would say, this is my own take of things, intellectual honesty. I mean, what I would say is intellectual honesty becomes so important, because in engineering, you're trying to give contextual information basis which decisions will be made, basis which there are massive stakes, right?
Right.
You may not be lying, but you have to present the whole truth with the context, and this will affect culture in its own way. I would say intellectual honesty, of course, but once you peel off the layers, it's about being honest to each other.
Right.
It's about giving feedback, which might sound brutal,
Right.
but when you're
taking it as a feedback or not,
exactly,
that is
you
important.
have to take it the right way, and you have to be absolutely honest to both parties. And I would say it translates into candor, it translates into better feedback loops, it translates into also honesty across the org when you boil this and bake this into every aspect of how you run the team, right? So, and yeah, other thing would be how you set up the pace of execution. It should be uncomfortable enough, but at the same time, you shouldn't burn you out, right? And that's where the leaders have to play a key role
Yes.
in how all of this pans out. So if they get into a comfort zone, then you're not squeezing out enough out of that team.
Yes.
And if you make them run a marathon on a continuous basis, they're eventually going to burn out at some
Right.
point. So if you can strike the balance between essentially pacing out the execution, then that will also become a high performance culture. What that trickles down to is, in order for me to do well, somebody else doesn't have to lose. Once you get to this point, then people start pushing each other, and then the bar becomes higher. I mean, Amazon says raise the bar. They simplify this a lot, but I would say these are the typical aspects of high performance culture. High accountability and ownership, having honesty in everything that you do, and being fair, and setting up this pace of execution, and finally setting up a high bar.
Right.
I mean, if you could chime in as
probably
to
I'll almost similar to what you said.
Okay.
But usually when Shankar and me talk, or let's say when we talk about with the people, we tell them one single thing, and it encompasses everything.
Okay.
We say that you should be ethical.
Yeah.
You should be ethical.
Yeah.
Now you should be ethical with our customers.
Yeah.
You should be ethical with your peers.
Yes.
You should be ethical with your top leader.
Yeah.
Or with your colleagues, right? Now once you do that, everything falls into place.
Yes.
Because then you will take ownership. You will ensure that your juniors who works under you, they are groomed well, they are grown well. So everything gets sorted out.
Yeah.
So we sum it up as a one single statement. Okay. Let's be very, very ethical.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Continuing to your last point, Amar. Let's talk about leadership. Right?
Yep.
And obviously you have been playing that role from quite some time.
Yep.
And one of the continuous discussion that a lot of people discuss, that how do you differentiate between a leader and a manager?
Okay.
That's a very commonly discussed point.
Sure.
So I would like to hear your thoughts, because you have been in this role from quite some time, and I've always seen you as a very good leader, not as a manager.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I would like to hear your thoughts, that what's your take on it, and how what people should learn from you to become a leader.
Yeah. So what I would like to say is there are going to be so many nuances, but if I have to simplify it and distill it in very simple terms, leaders should be able to communicate their vision very clearly. Of course, setting that vision is the first step, but then communicating that vision, laying down in very simple terms for the team as to what the priorities are and why they are doing what they are doing, and setting up the direction for why this particular execution path is what we are choosing and when is definitely what differentiates a very good leader from say other leaders and managers from great leaders, right? And if they are able to do that, it translates into outcomes for the company, for every stakeholder out there. And this also plays a huge part in how strategy is set for the company. So if the strategy is right, and if they are able to communicate it, boil it, distill it down to everyone, and if the direction is set, then I think those are very good hallmarks of what a good leader is supposed to be. Whereas managers are supposed to be keepers of the team, right? They ensure that people show up, they ensure that the team stays together, and these are very good attributes of managers, by the way. I mean, what I'm essentially trying to say is direction and speed. Both are given by, say, good leaders, and that is what is the hallmark of a good leader.
Great. Great. Thanks for great insight. Now, continuing to this leader discussion, so in an org there can be multiple different types of leaders as well, right? So would like to understand that how, what all those layers of leaders are,
Okay.
and then what would be the difference between those layers of leaders?
Okay, sure. Once again, a very good question. So let's say you have a typical hierarchy where you have a manager, a director, and say VP, CXO, whatever. At the end of the day, the titles are going to be a little bit fuzzy, but what differentiates or what ensures that people will grow up this ladder is going to be how they can handle ambiguity. If I have to elaborate on that statement, what I would say is in let's say an engineering structure, people will say that, you know what, this is the business that we want to be in, and this is the direction in which we want to grow, right? Can you distill that down into, say, top 2 to 3 things that this is what we need to do in order to grow? This is what we need to do in order to have good customer experience. And these are the top 2 to 3 technical decisions we need to make in order to make all of this happen, right? That's going to be at the very top. And translating from this is what the business is supposed to do to this is not an easy task, right?
Obviously.
And once this is done, it trickles down. So let's say the VP or the director level person, his mandate is going to be, in order to grow, I need to have, say, 2 different platforms, and this is going to be on React Native or Flutter, right? And then comes the next layer where, after this decision has been made, that you need to have a great Android app. It should be less than 10 MB, and you can ship it.
Right,
So the levels of ambiguity that the leader can deal with and how they make those decisions to enable the team. Essentially, we spoke about how the leader essentially sets direction, vision, and is able to clearly articulate those decisions, right? So the levels of ambiguity is what differentiates managers at every level. And you can take different cuts, but this is my foundational belief in what the differences are going
because
to be.
Yes, at every layer, the responsibility should be very well defined.
Yes.
Okay, what
Yes.
they should be doing. That's very important.
Yes.
Right. So my last question in this section of human
Sure.
side, and the most important one, since you have been playing this leadership role from quite some time, right? So I would like to understand from you that what is your take on what makes a high functioning leadership team in a company?
Sure. That's a very good question, and I think I found the right analogy for how to explain this also. I would say that it's a lot like parenting. I know that it's a different answer than what you were expecting, but I'll try to explain that bit, right? So let's say one of your juniors in your team comes to you and asks you a question as to, let's say, why are we doing this in the company, right? You will have a certain answer for him, right? You're going to say, this is what the plan is, and this is why we decided on doing this, and this is why, ultimately, this is why you're doing this, right? You will explain to him as to why that is happening. Now, let's say he goes to somebody else in the company, some other leader in the company, and he asks the same question. He should be getting the same answer, right? Yes. So it's a lot like parenting in the sense that you can't have 2 different opinions and say different things. If they say, hey, can I have a chocolate, right? They should get the same answer of no from both parents. So similar to that, when the leadership team is a cohesive unit and they all agree that this is the strategy and this is the tactics and this is what we are going to do, and this is how we are going to do it. It should translate to something which is organization wide, assimilated in the same way. They could be a diverse team, right? They could have different opinions. They could definitely be complementary, but ultimately they all have to agree, synthesize, and that has to trickle down to the company in the same way across, so that everyone else kind of assimilates that and they are all on the same page. I hope that was a good analogy. I was just looking for how to articulate it.
Very good analogy.
And yeah, you should provide your own take on the same question.
Sure. I can talk about what is working for us, right?
Okay.
So, see, when we started, it was very clear that let's talk about Shankar and me. When we started, Shankar and me were there, and we were very complementary in terms of capabilities. I'll not say capabilities, but the roles that was allocated to us. For example, we both are from tech background. Shankar was an architect. I was a DevOps engineer, right? But since I was a DevOps engineer, so I got the position of CTO. Shankar got the position of CEO.
Sure.
But then, since I was CTO, so the complete tech responsibility was put on me.
Yeah.
Right. So which means that any decision that needs to be taken strategy-wise, that was more like it was more my responsibility. Onus lies on me, and it is my responsibility. Similarly, if you think from the CEO perspective, then strategizing, setting direction for the company, right? What needs to be done, what not to be done, that is with Shankar. And there was a very clear segregation where we had a 200% trust on each other. That okay, this person would be doing what is the best for the company. Now, having said that, it is not like that. I cannot go back to Shankar telling him that okay, probably this is something you should not do. This is something you should do. And we were always open, as you said, that feedback is very important. So we have been always very, very open in terms of feedback. That feedback that is given, we analyze and then we take an action accordingly. Ultimately, it is my call in tech and Shankar call in terms of strategy. But yes, we were very open in terms of feedback, and this has worked very well for us. And as our leadership team grew, right? For example, Yogesh come as Chief Operational Officer. So then account management and all those things rolled into him. He's managing it very well with complete autonomy. Similarly, Arpit came into picture. So he started leading sales and marketing, again full autonomy. But then obviously we can give feedback to him, but ultimately it is her call. Is his call and his decision, right?
Of course.
So that has worked really well for us.
Interesting, and I'm pretty sure there is an amazing example of this, which is disagree but commit.
Yes, and coming back to your analogy, so I'll tell you that how. So I'm a person with this particular belief. So in our home as well, we follow same philosophy. So for example, all the decisions that is being done in our home, my wife takes all those decisions. And whenever kids come to me, say that okay, take permission from your mother. I'll support whatever she will say.
Sure.
I give feedback to her, but ultimately it is her decision.
Of course.
Okay, great. So we are almost at the end of our podcast.
Okay, sure.
And we will be wrapping it up. And as usual, any discussion, any podcast, at least in present time, doesn't end if you don't talk about AI and automation, right? So I would like to understand from you that what is your take on AI and observability, or let's say what advice you want to give to people who are listening to our podcast, that how they should perceive it, how they should see it, how they should plan for it.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to split that into two parts, right? One is how AI is going to play a role in our field, and since we are talking about DevOps and observability and so on and so forth, I think if you look at the evolution. At least in my belief, one of the things that is happening is can AI act in the context of a senior person or an expert in that field, right? And this could take multiple modalities and also multiple form factors. For example, let's say you have logs flowing in from infrastructure, and then you have logs flowing down from application. The nuance of connecting both and saying this is why that problem happened is something I think AI has already, there are tools which already claim to do it. I haven't found something good enough yet, but I'm sure that will come in someday, right? And you can take such examples and extrapolate them in every field. We spoke about security. I'm sure there are going to be agents which will do this really, really well in some time. Once again, I haven't found tools good enough yet. Very interesting examples are out there, but I haven't found them either cheap enough or good enough to deploy in production yet. But we will get there, right? And yeah, so everything having its own MCP server, agents kind of like navigating across different contexts, which are very hard for a human to do quickly,
Right.
Or for someone with less experience to do quickly. Those are definitely places where AI will have an impact. And now on to the second part, which is how should someone who is going to be new to the field, how should they navigate it? Uh, I would say that the fundamentals are still the same, right? Can you take a big problem statement and break it down into chunks and logically arrange them enough, be it in coding or be it in setting up infrastructure? The foundations are always going to be there, right? And those skills are not going to go away anytime soon.
Right.
So do something practical, do something which is going to result in something real, which real people use. I think the bar for every generation of freshers changes so often, and I'm actually quite blown away by what is expected out of freshers today, right? So 10 years ago, you're able to spin up a server and show something. It's a very good bar. And today we have people who bring great projects when they're in colleges. So the bar changes and the tooling changes. But if you are able to do something real, and if you're able to present and articulate clearly and communicate clearly, I think they should be safe. Now, what I would flip the coin and ask you this question. So those who are already in the field and probably growing in the field already, what should they be doing to stay relevant and to
So I have a very simple answer. What I have seen is that people tend to get into their comfort zone, right?
Okay.
That is the biggest mistake they tend to do. Now the point is that, and because that is was the reason that they got a decent job, everything is working fine for them, they get into comfort in their comfort position. Now the problem is that technology doesn't stop. And now as technology evolves, eventually you start lagging behind, and then one point comes where you become irrelevant.
Yeah.
So that is why it is very, very important that you should always remain in the pursuit of knowledge. You keep on learning new things. One thing that I tell to most of the people is that usually people have an expectation that the project is the source via which I will learn. I always motivate people that you should always look for something that is beyond project, because project is something where you don't have a control. What you want to learn, what you want to do. Pick up a hobby project. Pick up something which is coming new to the ecosystem. Do all those things and try to stay relevant. Try to remain ahead of the curve. Otherwise, there's a lot of competition. Freshers, as you said, that
exactly.
Now the freshers, the freshers that used to come 10 years back, they only know how to basically spin up a server.
Yes.
But now they are making a complete project, right?
Yes.
So obviously, as a senior person, you have to be better than them. You cannot be equal to them.
Of course.
That's the thing.
I think it's a very exciting time overall to be in engineering, regardless of whatever is happening and changes happening so quickly, and there are so many tooling which gets introduced. There's a lot of uncertainty, but I'm actually like super bullish about what's happening over the next 5 years. I think it's a very, very interesting time to be in engineering and in data and in this field overall, right? There is massive opportunity for everyone, and I just want to end by saying that I'm super bullish about not just our field as a whole, but also about all the possibilities that are opening up.
Technological advancement that are happening in current time. Great. Thank you very much, Amar, for sparing time out.
Yeah. And thanks for having me here. I'm super happy to be here, and thanks for the hospitality over the past couple of days.
Thank you very much.
Let's wrap this up. Thank you. Thanks again. Thanks everyone.